It starts with a blindfold and a lie. You thought you were joining something noble, something powerful, the kind of organization whispered about in alleyways and prayed against in palaces. Instead, you're led by a donkey up a crumbling mountain trail while your nose drips and your ankles bleed. The blindfold is vinegar-soaked linen. It stings like guilt and makes everything smell like regret, which is honestly a pretty good summary of what's ahead. After 3 days of silence, hunger, and half-muttered prayers from the guys hauling you uphill, you finally reach the gates of Alamut, the legendary fortress of the Hashashin. Spoiler, it's smaller than you imagined. The stone walls loom, yes, but not majestically, more like resentfully, like even the architecture has given up. Someone yanks the blindfold off. Your eyes burn. In front of you stands a barefoot man in a black robe with a stare that could probably curdle goat's milk from 10 paces. Hassani Saba, the old man of the mountain. You expected robes of gold, maybe some arcane ritual. Instead, he looks like a librarian who hasn't slept since the Seljuks rose to power. His beard's streaked with gray, his hands stained with ink and, hopefully, just ink. "You have arrived," he says, voice flat as dead water. "Now kneel." You kneel. Everyone kneels. Not because he said so, but because something in his voice makes your bones fold. There's a stone altar, cold, blood-stained, dramatically placed. Of course. You're handed a small blade, it's already been used. There are still fingerprints on the hilt. "Name," he says. You say it. It sounds weaker than when your mother said it. He walks past each of you, slicing open your palm with the same dull blade. The pain isn't sharp, just tired, like your body is starting to realize what your soul already knows. This was a terrible idea. Then comes the mantra. He says it once. The rest of you repeat. We are shadows, and shadows leave no graves. It sounds cooler in your head than it does bleeding on cold rock while a man who probably hasn't blinked in a decade stares through your soul. The gates of Alamut creak closed behind you. No one explains where the toilets are. They wake you before dawn by dumping cold water on your face and handing you a spoonful of something that might be porridge or might be regret mashed with goat fat. Eat, someone says. You eat. Training begins with a 3-hour rooftop balance exercise. The instructor calls it the dance of shadows. You call it attempted murder by breeze. One kid falls off the edge trying to impress someone. No one flinches. You suspect this is the point. After that, you're thrown into a pit of gravel to practice silent rolling. You do not roll silently. You roll like a dying mule. A man with 3 fingers tells you to start over, again and again, until you feel every rock personally judging your spine. They give you knives next, blunt ones. Because of course they do. You train to stab sacks of sand shaped like people, with names painted on them like Traitor, Vizier, or Saladin, do not miss this time. You're not sure if the last one is a joke or a sore subject. You don't ask. The lectures are worse. Every night, a different elder, each more wide-eyed and underfed than the last, sits in the torchlit hall and delivers a sermon about loyalty, sacrifice, and how paradise awaits those who obey. It might be more convincing if half of them didn't look like they'd already died and just forgot to fall over. One night, someone brings up the story of Nizam al-Mulk, a vizier, smart as a whip, assassinated while reading poetry. Why poetry? You whisper to the guy next to you. Because it's more dramatic that way, he replies. You nod like that makes sense. You're given a new name now. Your real one is retired, burned even. You watch it curl into ash over a ceremonial flame and feel nothing. Or maybe indigestion, hard to tell anymore. You sleep on stone, eat barely cooked lentils, and relieve yourself in a hole that echoes. Your bunkmate sings to himself at night in a language no one recognizes. He's either a genius or losing his mind, possibly both. The instructors say, "We're preparing you for paradise." But right now, paradise looks suspiciously like tetanus. And yet, you don't leave. Because deep down, past the sarcasm, under the filth, there's a part of you that still wants to matter. And maybe, just maybe, a blade in the right hand can make history blink, or at least twitch. After evening drills, everyone gathers around the courtyard brazier like it's a summer camp for emotionally repressed murderers. Someone tosses goat dung into the flames for warmth. Another passes around a tin mug filled with something that tastes like boiled regret and burns like justice. No one knows what's in it. No one asks. This is when the stories start. "Nizam al-Mulk," one whispers, grinning like he personally stabbed the guy. "Killed while reading in his tent. Didn't even drop the book." "Probably boring poetry," someone mutters. A senior nods solemnly. "First big kill. That one made the world notice us." You notice no one mentions the part where he was a reformer, or that his death helped plunge the Seljuk Empire into chaos. Small details. Next comes Saladin. 2 failed attempts. One of the older assassins, left with a limp and half an eyebrow, claims he was there. "He didn't flinch when we came at him," he says. "Just turned, drew his sword, and whispered something in Arabic that definitely wasn't 'nice try.'" The others chuckle. The limp man doesn't. "Wasted 3 men on that," someone says. "Yeah," the limper says, "but what a funeral." They speak of Crusader targets like old lovers. Reynold of Chatillon, too paranoid, too armored, still not dead enough. Bohemond, Robert, some duke with a fancy nose. Names float around like ghosts. But one name hits different. Conrad of Montferrat. "Stabbed him in a narrow street in Tyre," one says, staring into the fire. Broad daylight, people watching. "You were there," he shrugs. "I was the distraction. Threw fish guts at a guard. He chased me. King got knifed." That's the story. That's the legacy. Fish guts and a corpse. There's debate over who ordered the hit. Some say Saladin, others blame Richard the Lionheart. A few think it was just a busy week and Conrad looked stab-worthy. The truth's buried with the body. Maybe that's the point. You stay quiet. You realize history isn't made by great men. It's made by people like you, half-trained and full of nerves, hoping the guy next to you doesn't flinch first. The fire burns low. Someone sharpens a blade with too much enthusiasm. Tomorrow, it might be your name they whisper, or your name they forget. Either way, someone's getting stabbed. They don't tell you what the test is, just that you should fast for 2 days, drink a bitter tea that smells like damp moss and anxiety, and say goodbye to your bowels. You obey, of course, like everyone else. At midnight, they lead you out of the fortress, hooded again naturally, past the walls, past the last torch, to some forgotten ledge halfway between nowhere and certain death. They don't speak. Then you hear the scraping, stone on stone, a heavy lid being dragged open. When they remove your hood, you're standing beside a coffin, a real one, carved from solid rock, just wide enough for a body, just shallow enough to panic. "Lie down," someone says, not unkindly. You hesitate. "You'll want to do it before the honey sets," they add. "Excuse me?" Turns out they're going to coat you in honey, not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. Thick, sticky, cloying honey, ladled over your arms, chest and face like you're the worst dessert in history. You lie back in the coffin. Cold seeps into your bones. The honey draws flies within seconds. You try not to scream. You try not to move. "You'll be fine," the man says, "if you don't panic." Then they put the lid on. The world goes black. The air goes still. The buzz begins. At first, it's just a tickle. Then it's crawling, Then it's dozens of tiny feet tapping out Morse code on your neck. You try not to breathe through your nose. You fail. You inhale a wing. Minutes stretch into eternities. You lose track of time. You start naming the bugs. One is called regret. Another is, why did I join this cult? Your arms ache from resisting every primal urge to swat. Your bladder threatens to mutiny. You think of paradise, then immediately hate yourself for it. You cry quietly, or sweat so much it feels like crying. Same difference. Eventually, after what might be hours or centuries, the lid is lifted. Morning light hits your eyes like betrayal. You're shaking, covered in welts, possibly a few eggs, but you're alive. Someone grins and pats your shoulder. "Welcome to the order," he says. You didn't scream. You want to thank him or curse him or fall into the ravine. Instead, you just nod like this is normal, because apparently it is. And now, they trust you with a blade. South, that's comforting. His name is Zaid. He doesn't introduce himself, you just keep seeing him, watching from rooftops, silently critiquing your footwork, occasionally correcting your grip like he's adjusting a child's spoon. He's older than most, not ancient, but worn in the way knives are. Smooth edges, dull scars, nothing shiny left. One morning, you're practicing wrist flicks on a sack labeled Crusader when he walks over, grabs your elbow and says, "That's how you dislocate your own shoulder, unless that's your goal." You say thank you. He doesn't smile. He just adjusts your stance and walks off. That's your first lesson. The next comes after a particularly humiliating rooftop drill. You slipped twice, once into a chimney. Zaid finds you sulking with a bloodied knee and offers you half a boiled egg. You take it. "You're lucky," he says. "How so?" "Most people don't live long enough to be embarrassed." From then on, Zaid becomes your reluctant mentor. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's gold wrapped in gravel. He teaches you how to sharpen a blade silently, not just without sound, but without presence. He teaches you how to walk like a merchant, kneel like a servant, and kill like you're handing someone a letter. He tells you, don't think of them as people. Think of them as problems. Problems don't scream when they die. You nod. You don't believe him. Zaid's not a true believer. You can tell. He doesn't join the prayer chants. He doesn't recite the oath anymore. You once caught him spitting in the honey bucket. One night you ask him, "Why did you stay?" He takes a long time to answer. Then, "Because I'm good at it, and because if I leave I know too much. Sooner or later someone like you will be sent after me, and I'd rather be training the person who might one day kill me than wondering how badly they're being trained." You stare at him. He stares at the fire. Neither of you sleep that night. From then on, when you make mistakes, he corrects them before the instructors can beat them out of you. When you succeed, he grunts like it's a personal inconvenience. But when your name appears on the next mission list, he's the only one who says, "Come back breathing," or at least bleeding in the right places. You don't say anything. You just nod. Because in a place like this, that might be the closest thing to friendship you'll ever get. You're summoned at dawn by a man who doesn't blink. He hands you a scroll, tied with red thread and smeared with something that looks like blood, but might just be really old pomegranate juice. You open it. Target, Emir Khidr ibn Farouk. Location, Regional Prayer Compound. Time frame, immediate justification, political deviation. Subversive sermons. Previously tolerated. No longer useful, you stare at the name for a long time. You know this man. When your village was starving, he was the one who sent sacks of grain. When your mother broke her ankle, his guards brought the physician. When the Seljuk taxmen rode in drunk and left worse, it was Khidr who made them apologize. Not because he was soft, because he believed in rules. You're going to kill him for that. Zaid appears beside you, silent as always. He doesn't ask what the mission is. He already knows. Or maybe it doesn't matter anymore. Don't think, he says. Just breathe. You nod. You don't feel your legs. The prayer compound is quiet. The call to prayer has ended. Candles flicker against carved stone. Sandals line the entryway like offerings. Incense coils in the air like judgment. You walk through the courtyard like you belong there. Head bowed, eyes lowered, steps measured. He's there, kneeling alone on a rug. Gray at the temples now, a little thinner, a little slower, but still the same face, the same voice. He doesn't see you. You grip the blade inside your sleeve. Your pulse is a drum in a drowning man's ear. You count your steps, 12, 11, 10. Then you hear it. He's praying, but not for power or wealth or vengeance. He's praying for mercy. Yours begins to crack. You hesitate, just for a second. The kind of second that could kill you. Then you hear it, Zaid's voice in your head. Kill him or be replaced. You step forward, fast. The blade slips between ribs like a whispered regret. He gasps, turns, sees you. Recognition blooms like blood on silk. His mouth opens, but no sound comes. You hold him as he slumps. You whisper, "I'm sorry," because saying nothing would feel worse. Later, when the body is discovered, they'll say it was the will of God, that he was punished for his softness, that the blade of justice is swift and silent. You'll know better. You'll know that the first life you took was the one that once saved yours. And no matter how many more you kill, this is the one that will follow you forever. Congratulations. You're now officially a shadow, and shadows don't cry. They don't ask how it went. You return to Alamut, blood-soaked, hollow-eyed, and smelling faintly of incense and regret. No one claps, no one cheers. Someone offers you a ladle of boiled lentils. Eat, they say. So you eat. The next morning, there's a mark on your door, a small red smear shaped like a downward arrow. Zaid tells you it means initiate complete, or useful tool, or next disposable. The translations vary depending on who you ask. You spend the day scrubbing blood out of your tunic. It doesn't come out. Not all of it. You lie and say it's rust. Nobody believes you. That night, you vomit behind the north wall. Someone has. No one comments. At least one other person joins you. You don't talk about it. Just pass a flask between you and stare at the stars like they owe you something. From now on, the instructors nod at you differently. Like you're finally part of the club. You're included in the senior drills. You're given a better knife. You're handed a new tunic that fits slightly less like a sack of anxiety. They even let you speak during meal prayers now. Progress. You also get moved to a smaller dorm. Fewer snorers, fewer screams. It's considered a reward. You don't feel rewarded. Zaid visits you once, just stands in the doorway. Saw the body, he says. You nod. He doesn't offer praise or pity, just studies your face like he's checking for cracks. You hesitated, he adds. You look down, only for a second. He shrugs. That's how long it takes to die. Then he leaves. Later, you find a note under your blanket. No signature, just 5 words. Next time, no eye contact. You don't know if it's advice or a warning, maybe both. From that day on, everything you do feels lighter. Not because you're stronger, but because the weight has shifted. Morality starts to feel optional. Guilt starts to feel like nostalgia. You're not numb, not yet. You're just quieter. You practice more. You sleep less. You think about the Emir less often, but never quite forget. When you sharpen your blade, sometimes you hear his voice. Sometimes it thanks you. You know that's not how ghosts work. But still, you're on the list now. The one they use when something delicate, important, or especially untraceable needs doing. It's not a promotion. It's a slow descent with nicer robes. It starts with a name on a scroll. Again, but this one's different. Conrad of Montferrat, crusader noble, defender of Tyre, king-elect of Jerusalem. Emphasis on elect. He never made it to the throne. Yet, you squint at the seal. It's real. The ink's still damp. The wax smells like money and fare. Who ordered it? Nobody says. Some whisper Richard the Lionheart. Others say Saladin. A few nod toward a shadow of a shadow. What might be the ghost of Hassan-i-Sabah pulling strings from the grave? You've stopped asking for clarity. There's never any. The mission is simple, which in this line of work means impossibly stupid. Enter Tyre. Find Conrad. Eliminate. Escape. Heavily guarded. Obviously. Walking corpse. Also yes. You travel disguised as a fish vendor's apprentice. You actually learn the fish names. You learn how to gut a sardine in under 10 seconds. You start smelling like betrayal and haddock. Zaid doesn't join you on this one. He's too recognizable. Instead, you're paired with a boy called Faris. Young, excitable, the kind of person who hums during surveillance. He means well. He won't live long. Conrad walks like he owns the ground, which, to be fair, he mostly does. Tyre loves him. Saladin hates him. Richard pretends to trust him, but mostly wants him buried. He struts through the market with a small entourage and a slightly smug face. He wears chainmail under his robes. Subtle, but not foolproof. He buys oranges, compliments a merchant's daughter, tosses coins like a benevolent god. You watch, you wait, you count his guards. 6, too many. Then you see it, a side alley. Narrow, choked with baskets and drying ropes. One of his regular routes, less guarded, more poetic. You choose that. 2 days later, it happens. You're carrying a basket of fish guts. Faris is around the corner, ready to accidentally drop a crate of eggs. Conrad steps into the alley. Laughing, talking, just a man going home. Faris makes his move. A shout, a crash. Guards turn. For 2 seconds, there's chaos. You slip in, quiet, fast. The blade's already in your hand. Conrad doesn't see you. He feels you. Steel finds flesh. You twist, once, twice, like Zaid taught you. The king-elect collapses into the gutter, clutching his chest like he forgot something important. You vanish before he hits the stones. No one says your name. Not now. Not ever. By nightfall, Tyre is in mourning. Jerusalem is in confusion. Europe is in denial. You? You're on a boat back to Alamut, wondering if fish blood and royal blood smell any different. They don't. Tyre is louder after a murder. Not just the shouts, the bells, the trampling boots, those you expected. It's the whispers that get you. The way people glance sideways, the sudden tension when someone says Conrad in a sentence, like his name might still be listening. You keep your head down. You're just a fish boy again, smelling of brine and rot. Blending in so well you could vanish into a crate and be shipped to Cairo by mistake. Faris didn't make it. You saw the guards grab him. You saw him scream. You didn't stop. You weren't supposed to. When you reported it, the handler nodded like you told him the weather. Acceptable loss, he said. You didn't respond. You just handed him the knife. Still wet. The getaway wasn't glamorous. There was no moonlight sprint across rooftops, no rope-dangling escape. You slipped into a tannery, hid behind vats of cow urine, then bought passage out of Tyre with the coins you'd been saving for a clean tunic. You left your fish apron behind, folded on a bench, a small goodbye to a better-smelling life. Now you sit in the hull of a creaking boat, rocking in the dark, replaying it over and over. Not the stabbing. That part's clear. It's the way he looked at you. Not scared, not angry, surprised. Like maybe, just maybe, he expected the blade. He just didn't expect it from someone so small, so young, so nothing. You wonder how many kings die with that look. Back at Alamut, no one celebrates. They already knew. The scroll announcing Conrad's death beat you home. It's pinned to the wall near the courtyard, next to sketches of future targets, prayer schedules, and a faded joke someone wrote in goat blood. Zayd finds you in the training yard, sharpening your blade like it's the only thing you trust. He doesn't ask what happened. You don't offer. Instead, he tosses you a better dagger, balanced, clean, a gift. "You're ready for harder work," he says. You nod. You don't say, "I was ready 3 bodies ago." He walks away. You watch him go. You don't feel heroic or guilty or anything. You just feel used, polished, pointed. Congratulations, you're officially a ghost with a resume, and the street you left behind entire? Someone already swept the blood away. You wake to smoke. Not incense, not cooking fires. Real smoke. Thick, ugly, screaming from the throat of the mountain smoke. Someone yells, "Mongols!" Someone else yells, "Run!" Most just don't yell at all. Too busy dying or dragging scrolls into hiding places that won't matter by morning. Alamut, the unbreachable fortress, is very much breaching. Turns out belief doesn't make walls fireproof. You find Zayd near the archives, flinging scrolls into a pit and setting them alight. Not out of panic, strategy. Better they burn than end up in the hands of people who don't believe in anything but conquest and pyres. "They'll rewrite us anyway," he mutters. "Might as well delete the first draft." You help. You don't ask why. By midday, the mountain is choked in ash. You can't tell cloud from smoke. The ground shakes. The old towers crumble like they were tired of standing. You grab what you can, your blade, a half-finished map, the letter Zayd gave you last year that just says, "Don't die boring." You turn to find him again. But Zayd's gone. You wait, you shout, you check bodies, you find his scarf near the rubble. Burned. You take it. You don't cry. Crying is for people who left fingerprints on the world. You don't flee. You slip away. You become a pebble among debris, a shadow beneath smoke. You leave Alamut the same way you came in. Unnoticed. You head south. No plan. No orders. Just a satchel full of soot and a name no one uses anymore. Along the road you hear the rumors. The Hashashin are dead. The Mongols wiped them out. They were demons anyway, drugged madmen with blades for souls. No one mentions fish guts, or prayer rugs, or the boy who hesitated once, then never again. They turn you into myth. You let them. Years later, you live in a quiet village by the river. You tend goats. You write letters you never send. You keep your back to the door, always. Some days you carve shapes into driftwood, daggers, minarets. Once you try to carve Zayd's face, but the grain splinters. Maybe that's fitting. No one knows who you were. You're not even sure anymore. But sometimes in markets, you hear it. A whisper, a word spat with fear or awe. Hashashin. And you smile, just a little. Because while you were being forgotten, your shadow learned how to survive. And unlike names, shadows don't need remembering. History remembers kings. It names their castles, catalogues their sins, debates their legacies in marble and ink. But you were never meant to be remembered. You were a whisper in a scroll, a blur in the alley, a tremble in the voice of someone watching too late. You were the knife before the scream. They'll say the Hashashin were madmen, that you smoked herbs laced with paradise, that you believed in a garden, a god, a death that bought you heaven. They'll say you died willingly. And maybe that's true. Or maybe you were just hungry, scared, and 19 with no better offer. Alamut is ash now. The names are gone. The rituals are mocked. Even the legends have been turned into games, books, and half-baked conspiracy theories. But none of them know what it smelled like. The blood, the honey, the stone. None of them felt the weight of the blade before it became your finger. None of them dug graves for friends who didn't flinch fast enough. You weren't righteous. You weren't evil. You were trained, shaped, unleashed, and now you're just a breath behind history's curtain, a shadow that doesn't beg to be seen because it knows it never truly left. So when they ask what it meant to be a Hashashin, don't bother answering. Just let the silence speak. It's the only honest sound you've ever known.